Dundee, Ali's trainer, right next to me is saying it. You may hear him. Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning. Ooh, that was terrible. What was that? What was that?
Okay, morning to you.
May 20th, 2024.
Nailed it.
My name is Bernie Burns, with me right over there, who has clearly a much better... I was just saying, actually, how my voice is feeling way better, and then I went to go shout, and I couldn't do it. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad for a Monday. Certainly better than your voice is doing.
Weird start to the podcast. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning to you.
Here.
You are.
Allow me a try.
Oh, please. Can we do it? Oh, wait. Let me go. Let me cue it back up again. Let me cue it back up.
Okay,
You go.
here we go.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it's gotta be morning somewhere. For May 20th, 2024. Nailed it. I'm Ashley Burns. With me, sitting right over there. He can't talk, but he looks so pretty. It's Bernie Burns.
Well, you gave me a great intro. All right. Perfect. Second time's a charm on the intro. Great job on the intro, babe.
Thanks.
Look, that's how it works in Hollywood, man. You step in entertainment. These things that come up, you just got to be ready for your moment when it comes. Now you're doing it from now on.
It's indistinguishable from yours, really.
That was really funny. Sounded like a Scooby-Doo when he sees a ghost for the first time. My voice actually was totally fine right up until I did that. And then it said, nope, fail.
Maybe we'll just take it easy with the shouting today. It's all right. There's plenty of other things to have a nice, calm little chit-chat about.
Yeah,
like the fact that they've made an arrest in the dastardly attack upon the hero of New York, Steve Buscemi.
That guy is fucked, dude.
He's in so much trouble. You don't want to be the guy who has to go to trial for punching Steve Buscemi, the New York treasurer who, Bernie, did you know, used to be a firefighter and then rejoined his fire brigade to help on 9/11.
What? So did we talk about this in Follow Up Friday?
Did.
We found the people who didn't know that?
In fact, I don't think I mentioned it on Follow Up Friday, but I put a poll on Spotify for that episode asking, if people knew. And surprisingly, like 40% of people said that they didn't know that. It's hard to know how many of those are kind of jokey responses to the poll, but that's still higher than 0, which is kind of what I was expecting.
Polls online are always so hard. You never want to put a fake joke entry in a poll because people will always select the joke. And I never understand why people do it. If you really want to put a poll out there and figure out the actual information, if you ever insert the joke always wins.
The joke always wins.
Always wins. Yeah.
To give you some indication of that, I also made a poll about who's going to win the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight. And 40% of people said the bull. It was actually a pretty even split between Mike Tyson and the bull, and there were 4% that are really pulling for Jake.
All right, so we got a lot of ways we can go talking about this stuff right now because you were talking about, let's go with the Steve Buscemi thing.
Okay.
So this guy got arrested, suspect who is a person who allegedly hit the undisputed hero of New York. Steve Buscemi, I've been told. Buscemi.
So they haven't technically named the persons they have arrested. They did previously name a suspect and posted pictures of the suspect. They've not confirmed that is the individual that they have arrested, but I told
you, get out of town. Didn't I say it?
Just pick a direction and start walking.
Even if it's the ocean, just start walking. Just start going. Yeah.
You don't want to be the guy who punched Steve Buscemi.
No, you do not. You do not.
But yes, so they have made an arrest. We'll see if it ends up being the same guy.
You know what the weird thing was? So they had the season finale of SNL this last weekend, and they did the tradition now, which is where Colin Jost and Michael Che change jokes.
Right. They write jokes for each other, and they don't let them see them until they're live.
And it's this really cute way they can tell very offensive jokes.
Incredibly offensive.
And not be canceled for it. I don't think anyone's going to lose their career over it. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? But I do think it will be one of those things you will be explaining to your kids. Well, at the time, it was
So here's how it worked, right? Because all they'll see is some horrendous out of context clip of one of them, and they won't know about the grand tradition of the joke swap.
Right. Well, in the joke swap this time, it was one joke was made. Michael Che had to say it. where they talked about women on the street of New York being punched by random people. And so you had talked about this before, where this is just a weird thing that's going on in New York. And a couple years ago, they used to have the knockout game, which was like one of those viral things where people would record them like walking up to random people in the street and just knocking them out. But now that's just survived as just random attacks on the street, which is very, very, very frightening.
Yes, it's like you don't know. So remember, always wear your headgear.
In my career, there's been times where I feel like I had a fairly young audience. Like there were people in the audience definitely who were young. You hear Mush out there?
Do you hear Mush meowing outside the door? Should we let him in?
Yeah, you go let him in. I'll tell the story while you're walking across the room. We weren't trying to have a young audience, but when you're making content, there's always younger people who want to try to age up to watch it. And, there were certainly some shows that were geared more towards younger viewers. I'd never tried to do that. But I recognize that, especially online, some younger people were out there watching our stuff. And I always had an obligation, I felt like, to talk about them when things came up online. And there were all these viral challenges. We just talked about the knockout game one. There was also the Tide Pod challenge where people were ironically eating Tide Pods, but not really. But then some people didn't get the ironic part and were actually eating Tide Pods and chemically burning their mouth. But even before that, there was one that I felt like I had to go out and say explicitly, don't do this. Do you remember the light yourself on fire challenge?
I do.
It was where people would stand in their bathtub, and I guess they would fill the bathtub with water. Then they would cover themselves with something flammable and light themselves on fire. And I guess what most people don't realize is when you're a human and you get lit on fire, you don't always think, oh, I have a procedure that I should follow next and drop into the water or whatever. That you just flip the fuck out.
Right. It's blind panic is bound to happen to you when you're, on fire.
I had to tell people explicitly, whatever you do in life, just never light yourself on fire. Just never, ever, ever do that. It's going to end badly.
The upside is not worth the downside.
There's no, just don't do it, period. Don't even analyze it. Just never, never light yourself on fire. I used to put in my journals all the time. Also, don't light yourself on fire. and just wrapping up on the SNL joke trading. Every now and then, though, Michael Che gets one that's really tough. And this year he had one. The toughest one I'd seen so far was when he had to say Blue Lives Matter. And you can tell he did not want to say it. But the one this time was he was making fun of Kendrick Lamar, and he did not want to do it. He was like, your beef with Drake is over, but your beef with Michael Che has just begun. And he did not want to be saying that at all.
I get it. You definitely unless you are the top rapper in the world, you don't want to be starting a rap beef with Kendrick Lamar, as he's just shown. He's been number one on Spotify all over the place with that diss track. And
it's just like anything else. Once people start to be known for something, they just kind of lean into it. You see that all the time. I see it on influencers that kind of rise up. Next time you see an influencer that's like a trend, like someone lip syncing or something like that, or they're known for doing a certain kind of video, go back and scroll back to their early videos, and you can watch the point at which they discover that. They'll do a viral video and it gets really popular. Then they'll make a couple other videos that are more in line with what they were doing before. And then they go back and make another video like the viral one. And then fairly soon, the viral video is all that they make over and over again.
Right. They are finding their niche.
Where they find what works. And when they find what works, it's obviously a confirmation bias, because if they're successful, it worked. But they lean into it really, really hard, and you can see it.
Yeah, to be expected. Speaking of leaning into strengths, holy Fallout.
Oh yeah, they're doing great.
I feel like every day there's a new headline about how great Fallout's doing. And the newest headline is that it is the first non-Netflix show to do 2 billion minutes within its first week or 5 days or so.
To be clear, you're talking about 2 billion watch minutes.
On the show. To put that in perspective for Amazon, Reacher has been a runaway success on the platform. It's like the dad show of Amazon. It's
gets me out of tickets too.
And Fallout has beat that by over 1 billion minutes in the same time frame.
I'm really happy that Fallout is doing well. This is a dumb metric, I think. This is like something that's the new media metric. Billions of watch minutes. That was not a metric you heard about earlier. It doesn't really depend on how long the show is.
It's yeah, it would. So you would, if you have a longer show that has a sticky audience, then yes, you're going to have more minutes watched.
Yeah,
if you're going back to ye old days of broadcast TV where you have like 20, 22, 45-minute episodes in a season, then the audience who tunes into those religiously every week, that's going to add way, way, way up. It feels a little bit like the online ads versus, broadcaster magazines, right? It's like, if you're selling magazine ads, you go, here's our circulation. This is how many people get this magazine. That's your metric.
That's your metric, right. So what's the metric for a series? What do you think it is?
For a series, I would say completion rate should be a big one.
I would just say how many people watch it, period. That's it. Like how many views did it get? Right? Isn't that the metric for videos, right?
Yes, but then what if you have shorter episodes, Bernie?
Well, I guess so. But then you could say like how many people watch each episode, right? Is what you'd say. Like even like Rooster Teeth, one of the metrics that always was touted a lot was we had billions of views. Well, we had thousands of videos, across, billions of views. But if you look at it, Rooster Teeth never had a video that did more than about 18 million views. If you go to some of the top channels on YouTube and you start scrolling down through their most popular videos, you got to go way down to find a video that's 18 million views, which would have been the highest viewed video on Rooster Teeth. It's one of those things I'm surprised nobody ever pointed out.
I read something recently about, it was an online video creator. He made a short film on YouTube, funded it via Indiegogo, I think raised something like $10,000, released this short film, and it got 5 million views on YouTube, which is like, that's great. It's not unheard of for YouTube, right? There's a lot of videos on YouTube that do hundreds of millions of videos. It's good. It's really good.
Hundreds of millions of views.
Yes, I'm sorry. Hundreds of millions of views. But it's great, but it's not, you wouldn't think looking at that number, this is a career maker. Guess what it is? This guy, Wesley Wang, he's like 19, and he's now making a movie for Darren Aronofsky.
But in other world news, we have the big story. Two big stories for the weekend were CCTV footage was released of Sean Puffy Combs abusing, in every sense of the manner, his girlfriend at the time. Shocking footage.
So this footage came out more or less being like, yep, there is no doubt that this thing has happened.
Right.
He released a video apology, and people are like, you're only apologizing because you got caught.
Man, I read it's interesting. Every now and then on social media, you get an analysis that's really succinct. When the kids were barricading themselves into the administrative offices during the protests in Columbia and other universities for the Free Palestine movement, somebody pointed out that these kids that are now in university are Gen Z kids. So they've been trained how to barricade themselves into classrooms. They've been taught
that's so dark.
They've been taught that their entire lives because they weren't protected from school shooters.
That is dark and not inaccurate.
Not inaccurate at all. And with the Sean Puffy Combs thing, somebody made an analysis. Somebody made an observation that I thought was really succinct as well, which was when he comes out into this elevator lobby, he's in a towel, which means that she took whatever opportunity she could to get out. Like she waited until he was in the shower or couldn't chase after her, and he chased after her anyway.
Wow.
And it's like, that's really dark and horrible. Like there was no moment when she could leave.
It's scary stuff.
And the other big story is that the Iranian president and the foreign minister died in a helicopter crash over the weekend.
Yeah.
It wasn't really clear at first. First, it was being reported as a hard landing. And there was this rescue and search effort going on. And I think everyone at the time was like, yeah, he probably didn't survive that.
Well, when I read rough landing, I thought that, that meant okay. I didn't mean that was just a nicer way to say that was a terrible crash.
Yeah.
But it's not really known exactly yet what happened, just that they went down. And that there were multiple people on board. The Iranian president Ibrahim Raisi was one of those people. Now they were saying there's no signs of life. Now they've confirmed that he and the others are confirmed dead.
Does this remind you of anything else?
It does. It reminds me of the basketball player who had a similar rough landing. And
You're talking about Kobe Bryant?
I'm talking about Kobe Bryant.
Oh, yeah.
He and his daughter went down in a helicopter and were confirmed dead.
We're going to have two very different examples of what this reminds us of.
Oh, all right. Go ahead. What's yours?
Mine is Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who there was a lot of world conflict going on. This Archduke of Austria was assassinated, and that started World War I. It was like the most immediate cause of World War I. You know, this is a crash of a helicopter. The Iranian president is dead. This is like a conspiracy theorist, like wet dream. You know, people are going to go crazy for this. And sure enough, Israel, after the announcement of his death, Israel has already come out and made a statement saying that Israel was not involved with Raisi's death. An official has told the Reuters news agency. It wasn't us, said the official, who requested anonymity.
Oh.
So this is one you'll definitely want to pay attention to, I think, in world politics.
I would like to take us out on a more positive note, Bernie. I would like to congratulate really you and everyone else on the great success of 7 Days to Die.
This is so weird. Ashley and I looked at this weekend. I don't know why we looked at it, but this is such a weird stat. What happened?
7 Days to Die, which has been in early access on Steam since 2013, just had its biggest day ever for concurrent players. Now that's very likely related to the announcement that it is finally, after a decade, leaving early access, and it is going to spread its wings and fly into 1.0 territory. But that's still enormous. It had 105,000 players concurrently, which surpasses its previous peak, which oddly enough was July of 2023, which was 96,000 players.
Now, this can't possibly be people who have been waiting until it comes out to play it, right?
They're like, this is on my watch list. As soon as it actually comes out, I'm on it.
This just had to be a moment in time where everyone who's ever played 7 Days to Die was reminded how much they liked 7 Days to Die and went back and played it. That has to be what it is, right?
Maybe there's a club.
It can't be new players, right? It cannot be that. It's got to be like the old players coming back. Because I thought about going back and playing, when I heard that it came out of early access.
You go back and play constantly. Like every time they would wipe your save, you're like, all right, I'm excited. Here we go, new base.
And that's got to be like 90% of the 7 Days to Die player base. But here was a reason to go back and play that we all had, right?
Right. Is like the big celebration of it actually leaving early access.
Yeah.
But that's such a positive milestone. It's great to see that after 10 years, it's still gaining steam.
Okay, well, I feel like this is Monday, so I do feel like there was a lot of news this weekend. Can we do a quick lightning round?
Yeah, hit me.
Here's something our Patreon listeners will be very familiar with. It's our lightning round. Lightning round. Speaking of Patreon, you did a game night this weekend. How did that go?
Yes, that was a lot of fun. So we played a little bit of Jackbox together. It was a lot of fun. If you're interested in more game nights, we'll be posting those up on the Patreon as we plan them. So I hope you participate. It's a lot of fun. We can do more interactive games and then also probably more like play-in chats as well. I think it'd be fun to play Mass Effect, actually.
And if you want to check that out, it's patreon.com/morningsomewhere. And thank you today to
our sponsors, Jason Vraptianak and David Ilgen.
Jason and David, thank you very much. Quick round out here with sports news this weekend because both the NHL playoffs and the NBA playoffs are going on. But real quickly in the NBA playoffs, the Final Four has been decided. It's going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals. And the Eastern Conference Finals are the Indiana Pacers and the Celtics of Boston.
How does that make you feel?
I'm not much of a basketball fan personally. I feel like this is about the time I start paying attention to basketball, which is like a metaphor for basketball in general. I feel like it's the only sport that if you miss the first 75% of the game, it's perfectly fine.
You're fine. There's it's one of those high scoring games where a comeback could be imminent anytime.
You could be at halftime. It's like, well, our team's losing by 50 points. Let's see what happens. It's an odd sport to me. But NHL, the Final Four hasn't quite been decided yet. We'll be talking about that more later. I think the big sporting news, though, is that Tyson Fury lost for the first time ever.
Okay, walk me through that. Who's Tyson Fury?
Tyson Fury he's a heavyweight champion. He's kind of an interesting dude because he doesn't look like an athlete in his prime. He looks like he's called the Gypsy King. He's had this incredible record. He's like the only guy really that anybody's been paying attention to in boxing for a while, besides these exhibition matches, which have been taking place all over the place. But he has this thing where he's an undefeated boxer, although he wasn't the undisputed champion because there's so many belts. But now this guy, Alexander Usyk, who's also undefeated, but with a much lower record, he is now the first undisputed champion in boxing since I think about 2000.
Okay, wow, that's been a while. Who's got the longest?
Goes back to Lennox Lewis.
Lennox Lewis.
Yeah.
Who's got the longest record for being undefeated? Is that a thing?
Gosh, I don't know boxing that well. My guess would probably be Floyd Mayweather. There might be dudes like back in the 40s and the 20s, like Rocky Marciano, who have really long records. But Floyd Mayweather, if memory serves, he was like 50-0. Tyson, for instance, who everybody knows, he was about 37-0 when he was knocked out. And when he was knocked out,
Tyson's been knocked out?
Yeah, he got knocked out. You didn't know that?
I didn't.
He got knocked out by a really not a well-known boxer from the Bronx, green gloves and green things called Little Mac. That's a punch out there. He got knocked out by Buster Douglas, who then immediately got dethroned by Evander Holyfield. But the first time Tyson got knocked out was also the first time Tyson had been knocked down. So it was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So big day for him.
Yeah. And he was only 23 years old, if memory serves. Like he had a 37-0. This is all from memory. 37-0 record. And he was only 23 years old. But Tyson Fury now, he lost in a decision, which sucks. Although Usyk caught him with like this brutal left hand. I don't know how he did not go down. Like he chased him all over the ring, and he went into like the turnbuckles and held himself up. But I don't know how this guy stayed on his feet at all, because he was just like wandering around that ring while this guy was just wailing on him. Ended up not getting knocked out, but then lost in the decision. So now he falls to 34-1-1. He'd had a draw before.
Okay.
A draw. So
that's still very respectable numbers in my opinion.
But it's not, there's not much like besides these weird like Logan Paul, Jake Paul exhibition matches. No one's really talking about boxing anymore. So it's interesting now that there's an undisputed champion. Guy has a 22-0 record with 14 KOs. Right. Alexander Usyk, who's now your undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Ashley.
Sounds like he's got adamantium arms.
All right. Well, any other news going on? Anything else you want to talk about?
Yes, enormous news. The biggest news. I don't know, Bernie, if you follow someone on Instagram whose name is Bernie.
What? I don't follow anybody on Instagram. What?
But you posted on your Instagram a reel of our new favorite ducks. And I have to tell you that I have been putting that on a repeat. I've just been playing it over and over, and every couple of seconds I get ducks.
You know, I do have to edit together the social media posts for when we actually corralled the ducks and got them into our pond. I'll have to do that.
We should put that together. It's I suspect that will be a fun journey for us to relive and for everyone else to be like, they're not scaring the ducks at all. Scary duck. Rawr.
All right. Well, that does it for us today, May 20th, 2024. We will be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.